Welcome and thank you for joining us today for the Bluelock webinar, Managing Cost in the Cloud. This webinar will last no more than 1 hour, and please make sure to stay tuned until the end when we'll announce the winners of the $50 iTunes gift cards. I'm Alicia Gava, and I'll be your moderator for this session. The speaker today is Bluelock's Chief Technology Officer, Pat O'Day. Pat is actually the person who coined the phrase infrastructure as a service and made the first entry in Wikipedia for the term. He's a regular speaker at VMworld and other tech-related events such as Interop, and he was also one of the original founders who started Bluelock 5 years ago. And with that, I will pass the controls over to Mr. Pat O'Day.
Thanks, Alicia. So in terms of the agenda for the day, we're going to go over 4 key areas, and our hope is that you walk away from the session with a better understanding of each one. So the first thing we're going to cover is just a little bit about Bluelock and the VMware vCloud to give you a perspective of where we're coming from when we look at the cloud space. Then we're going to dive into discussion on the true cost of IT and how that's changing, as well as highlight ways you can forecast your future spending and perhaps more importantly, avoid unnecessary spending as you start your cloud journey. So who is Bluelock? We are basically solely focused on the public cloud space. We provide virtual data centers, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the presentation. And we serve a wide range of use cases from dev tests all the way to mission-critical applications. And as a certified VMware vCloud data center, we're one of VMware's closest and most integral vCloud partners. A lot of the products that VMware launches in the vCloud space, we actually launch with them at VMworld and other events. So what is the vCloud Datacenter Service itself? It's a designation a vCloud provider gets when they achieve the highest level of certification from VMware. It's primarily about maintaining 100% VMware compatibility, and what that means is that we use common tools both on the public and private cloud side. So if you have a vSphere environment today, all the technologies like vShield, vCloud Connector, vCloud Director, Virtual Center, and vSphere are 100% compatible with our cloud platform. And what that means is if you can run a workload in your own private vSphere environment, it'll automatically work in the Bluelock vCloud environment. It also means if you put a workload into a VCDC provider's cloud environment and then you need to move it back into vSphere or to another vCloud provider, that workload will still work. And what both those levels of compatibility mean is that you won't be locked into a solution or into a particular cloud provider, and you can move your workloads whenever and wherever it makes the most sense. And we see a lot of companies do that with testing. They'll move something into the cloud, and then when they feel sure about what they actually need, they'll move it back into their own data center. Additionally, each vCloud data center provider has to meet some pretty stringent enterprise-level service level agreement terms in terms of uptime and security. And we have to be SAS 70 Type 2 compliant for U.S. providers, and for overseas, it has to be ISO 27001. We also maintain a level of logging that would be required to facilitate an audit of the vCloud environment, which for financial services or healthcare is an important criteria to have. So enough about Bluelock and the vCloud. Let's talk a little bit about how IT supports the business and how that's changing. So in order to understand why managing cost is more important than ever, let's look at how IT supports business today. So the business has a responsibility to create sustainable value while being able to react to a variety of changing business conditions. These can be merger and acquisition, this could be new product lines, just all the things in business that change in order for a business to compete successfully in the marketplace. And increasingly, the business is playing the role of a technology consumer. And what they really want to do is leverage technology to make them more agile. IT, they play the role of a technology supplier and provide the business with technology services that try to facilitate the agility that the business needs but they also need to do that with a strong focus on efficiency. And that efficiency and agility create a natural tension inside the business, which is very healthy, but it can also be really challenging to manage. But it's that healthy tension in the business that's the true driving force behind the need for public cloud as we see it today. So in the traditional role, IT has played the role of both the supplier and the producer of the technology resources a business might consume. But as the role of IT evolves in the cloud era to be an effective supplier to the business and to be able to act quickly, IT will continue to make their existing data center more efficient so they can be a competitive producer of technology resources by evolving their existing data center into a private cloud. But at the same time, as part of a good hybrid cloud strategy, IT is going to extend their supply chain to include other sources of production capacity by engaging with cloud service providers. And what this means is that though IT itself may be producing less of the technology resources, they're going to take on the additional effort of managing the recurring cost and activities for multiple suppliers in addition to the capital expense and staffing cost that they're used to managing today. The other phenomenon in the new world is that the application owner, who often represents the need of a specific business unit or project, has started to get more autonomy in terms of how they consume and spend their budget dollars on technology. So traditionally, they would work with the IT department and submit a ticket for a resource, or maybe if there's a private cloud, they might take advantage of self-service if IT has evolved their data center to that point. Increasingly, though, the application owners are spending more of their dollars directly with the cloud provider. The important thing is that whether you're an application or infrastructure owner, your ability to understand and manage your cost is becoming really important to ensuring good experience and also maximizing the return on any investments you make in the cloud. So in the old way, whether you were a business unit or the IT department, technology architectures and purchasing can be really complex. There are a lot of details that need to be addressed, a tremendous number of decisions to make, and each of these elements has its own cost, but it can also, there's a lot, in terms of making a decision, it can be very time-consuming. With a public cloud approach, there are a lot fewer decisions to get started, and a lot of the underlying cost and complexity is dealt with by the provider, making things a lot simpler. And we found that the easiest way to look at a public cloud is to consider it more of a virtual data center, so kind of a large bucket of technology resources. And when you build your virtual data center, the key decisions that you make are how much CPU, RAM, and how much storage you need in order to support the application or multiple applications that you're going to be delivering for the business. And while some development and test workloads can run in a sandbox and don't need connectivity to the public network, majority of them do. And if they need to have access to the public network, you'll have to factor bandwidth in as a cost as well. But with those four components, you really have everything you need to size a cloud environment. With the enterprise cloud environments, there are some other cost considerations. And these show up as additional options that you can think about. And this depends a lot on how much of the overall management of your environment you're going to do yourself, or if you're going to let IT do that, or even let the cloud provider do that. Most of the choices are pretty intuitive based on the type of business or work that you do. Some of these functions you may want to do yourself. You might ask the provider to do them for you if they offer those services. And in terms of cost management, these additional options look a lot like accessories you might add as the last step in a checkout process, similar to adding a printer or a carrying case when you're in the final stages of buying a new laptop or an iPad. And a case would be kind of like storage in that you only pay for what you use. Most managed services work more like printer ink in that there's a recurring cost of some time as you use the service month after month. So with any significant technology change, there's good news and bad news. With most things, the fairest cost model is the one where you only pay for what you use when you use it. The good news is that that is exactly how the cloud works, but the challenge is twofold. For a lot of people, understanding how much IT you really use is actually a new concept. So if you haven't really ever seen what something cost before, when you actually can see how much it costs, it could be surprising and really hard to understand. Imagine if you were suddenly to stop paying taxes and you were billed directly for road repairs, schools, or military defense. Those numbers might be kind of surprising to you. The other challenge is that because it's being billed when you use it, your cost might change on an hour-by-hour or daily basis. So being predictable about how much your monthly expense would be or your annual expense can be a challenge. So let's compare the cost of a traditional approach with the pay-for-use model. You can see in a traditional approach, there are some initial activities and time lost and expense due to design, shipping, installation, and testing of the technology solution. But with a cloud model, you can start right away. You can also see that with the traditional spend, you have to know how much you need before you start. With a cloud model, you start only with what you need and grow over time as you become certain about the amount of resources you need. So that could potentially save a tremendous amount of wasted startup dollars. That sounds really good, right? Well, let's look at a few more scenarios. In the first case, we work with a company called Adobe, and their application that they launched in the Bluelock Cloud was very successful. So they started small with only what they needed and continued to grow, which, as you can see by the amount of red expense on the chart, actually saved them a tremendous amount of money. In the second case, we worked with a financial services firm that wasn't quite sure what they needed initially, and eventually their utilization peaked and plateaued, so it became very manageable and predictable, but they also saved quite a bit of money that they would have overspent had they built everything based on the scale they thought the application might get to before they actually knew what was going to happen. In the third case, we worked with the research and development team at a major pharmaceutical company, and their project had really specific criteria under which it would either continue to grow or that they would actually turn the application off. And this particular application was one of several initiatives they launched in the cloud. Most of them were successful, but this one was not. So they were able to turn the cost off as soon as they knew it wasn't actually going to meet the success criteria. So they were able to save, after basically 5 or 6 months, they were able to save all the additional money they would have spent if they had to keep running the infrastructure for 3 years, even though the business unit no longer needed it. So as we saw before, there aren't a lot of decisions to make in the cloud, and a lot of learning about what you need will only start once your applications are actually up and running. So once you've designed your initial virtual data center and launched or migrated your applications into the cloud, in addition to right-sizing your resources and cost, over time you might actually want to mix and match the components that you've initially configured your environment for, but stay within your current spending budget. And that could be because you're adding additional applications into your virtual data center or because the changing needs of the application you actually have running. So whether it's for a single virtual machine, an entire virtual application, or your whole virtual data center, you can actually change the blend of components whenever you need to. In this case, one of our software as a service customers thought they needed a lot of storage initially, but then learned over time that what they really needed was more CPU and RAM to support additional users because their application was so successful. And they needed less overall storage than they originally thought because they became really efficient in creating scripts that purged all the unnecessary data that they had been collecting. So they adjusted their resources over time to favor CPU and RAM and a lot less on storage, and their overall expense stayed the same. So in the cloud today, based on our experience of having done this for quite a while, there are a lot of different types and workloads and applications you might put in a public cloud environment. Each has a distinctive usage pattern that's either typical of that workload, for example, disaster recovery. Disaster recovery, our customers typically use very minimal compute and memory resources because there isn't anything really running under normal conditions. But they use a lot of storage because they're replicating a copy of their data on an hourly basis into the cloud. And then if they would ever have an event, they would actually consume all this CPU and RAM that they would need in order to power the environment up into production, but there's no reason to pay for that if you're not actually using it at the time. In a software as a service or production application, customers tend to use a lot more CPU and RAM in real time because the actual users of the application are live in the cloud environment all the time. So a lot of efficiency can be gained if you look at this from a virtual data center standpoint and start to run more than one workload of different types inside your cloud environment. So when it comes to mixing multiple workloads, when workloads come and go or when they go through peaks and valleys of usage, they can often complement each other. So by leveraging, by leveraging the peaks against the valleys effectively, you can more fully maximize your return on investment because you're consuming resources in your environment that might otherwise be wasted. So you could do this with multiple workloads of different types, or by running development and test in addition to production, and whenever production would need additional resources, dev and test simply slow down. So we've shown the cost of IT becoming more transparent in the cloud and offered some ways to manage it better. Now let's look at some scenarios where you can use that transparency and actually save some money. So a big key to success in being able to help the business overall, and more specifically application owners and business units, understand how their actions impact their costs. To do that, we created an application called Bluelock Portfolio, and it actually runs on top of the virtual data centers you have in the cloud. And it's a web-based tool that allows you to analyze your virtual data centers, vApps, and virtual machines, both from a utilization and a cost perspective. As you can see in this screenshot, we have the cost broken down by application component. So you can see how much SharePoint costs versus Exchange versus your primary domain controller. You can also break your cost down by the elements of the application itself, licensing versus storage versus RAM versus the firewall cost. Or, depending on how you're structured, you can break your cost down by business unit. And several of our customers today actually take screenshots out of Portfolio and send them to their business units so they have some idea of how much of the cost of the overall cloud that business unit represents. And they can also see that whenever the business unit did something to greatly increase the cost from where it was before, that the business unit can be very well aware that their utilization went up and why before their bill actually comes. Another cool trick you can do in Portfolio is make sure that you have the resources in place in time to avoid any kind of service disruption. So the cloud is often portrayed as a limitless technology resource pool, but in reality, the cloud is actually broken up typically into buckets of resources, and if you would run out of resources either in an individual virtual machine, in a vApp, or in your virtual data center, you could create a service disruption for the end users. So by using Portfolio to spot trends in utilization, as you see in the upper right graph, you can then log into the vCloud Director console and make any necessary adjustments to increase the resources before they run out. As you can see here, the trend on CPU consumption appears to be increasing in a linear fashion somewhat consistently, so it probably makes sense to increase the CPU ahead of the issue, or at least let the application owner know what you're seeing and advise them what to do. So you can increase the allocation and not run out of CPU. As we mentioned before, one of the reasons a business might decide to embrace a hybrid cloud approach is to reduce their total cost of ownership. The best way to make that happen is to dry up any resources that aren't being used. We see a lot of workloads go into the cloud with one set of requirements, only to determine over time they've settled down, but are still very over-provisioned. As you can see here in Portfolio, the amount of RAM required has actually stabilized. So there's a great opportunity to lower the amount of RAM provision from 16 gigs to 8 gigs and really save half of your RAM cost. If you or the business unit's actually concerned about reducing the resources, that might cause a performance impact because there are occasional spikes in utilization, you can actually look back in history over the last month, quarter, or year and see if the current plateau you're observing is a temporary phenomena or if it's pretty consistent. And our general advice is if it's been stable for the past month or two, it's probably safe to go ahead and take the cost savings and reduce the amount that's allocated. And if there is a spike coming up that's predictable, through the director interface, you can simply go back and add the resources whenever you want. It's all very efficient. So in closing, hopefully we've delivered on our promise of helping you understand more about Bluelock and VMware vCloud, the dynamic and transparent nature of the cost in the cloud, as well as some ways you might be able to forecast future spending, and then ideally avoid any unnecessary spending as you begin your journey into the cloud.